Welcome to Sam's Business Growth Show. I'm Sam Dunning, a digital marketing, sales and business growth evangelist. Tune in and subscribe today as I'll be interviewing business leaders, experts and entrepreneurs from around the globe. You'll be learning their story, how digital marketing has helped them along the way, and exclusive tips and insights to help you skyrocket your own business. Hi everyone, and welcome back to a fresh episode of Sam's Business Growth Show. I'm delighted to be joined by Jeroen Corthout today. Jeroen is the co-founder and CEO over at Salesflare, an intelligent CRM built for small to medium businesses selling B2B, used by thousands of agencies and software as a service companies. Salesflare itself was founded when Jeroen as co-founder Lieven wanted to manage leads for their own software company in an easier way. They didn't like keeping track of them manually and built Salesflare, which pulls customer data together automatically. It's now the most popular CRM on Product Hunt and top rated on review platforms like G2 for its ease of use and automated features. Jeroen, a very warm welcome, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, my friend. Looking forward to chatting with you. And I know today the main topic of focus is going to be how to compete with giants as a small business, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in some of the tips and advice and strategies that you've got. I certainly am, on how we can overtake, because I think in all of our industries, especially when starting companies, we look at these big brands when we perhaps do a Google search and we see them come up and we think, how the heck are we going to compete with them? It's going to take me years and years to actually have a chance of getting these kind of customers. So it'll be interesting to see the tips and tricks that you can share with us today and the takeaways that we can learn from your good self. Before we get stuck into that, Jeroen, give us a quick snapshot of yourself. Tell us a bit of your background. Tell us why you started Salesflare and how that came about.
Yeah, very short. Previous to Salesflare, I worked in a marketing consultancy / agency that used Salesforce internally. Salesforce was sort of my very first CRM, so I took using it very seriously. People told me that would help me organize my sales, so I really tried using it for sales follow-up, but I just didn't manage to make it work for me so well, and it actually didn't really work for any of my sales colleagues either, I must say. Our CEO loved it for doing reporting, and I'm sure he still does. But we, the salespeople ourselves, we didn't really get much further than entering our sales opportunities in there. It just didn't really help us sell, so it didn't make sense for us to use it for more than management reporting. And I didn't really do anything with that insight for a few years until I was working with my co-founder Lieven on another software company. And we had a ton of leads to follow up. And I knew Salesforce wasn't really going to help us with that. So we had a good look around and we tested different CRMs. But all of these CRMs sort of failed time and time again at the same point, and that was us, because we didn't really manage to fill them out like we were expected to fill them out. We didn't really have the discipline to sort of be these perfect data input robots. The software expected us to be this kind of robots, but we weren't, and we thought, well, most salespeople aren't. And that's when we figured that it doesn't really have to be that way, and that we could build a system that isn't dependent on us to do the data input, and that also actually helps us to follow up and make more sales. So we figured that the things we and everyone else were inputting into our CRM were basically information that was already available in other places, so like in your emails, in your calendar, in your phone, in social media, company databases, email tracking, web tracking. And all we needed to do was surface that information, connect it automatically, and then offer it back to you in such a way that you can sort of curate that information in just a few clicks. And that's when Salesflare was born. It's an intelligence CRM that's built on top of existing data, and that organizes that data automatically, so you don't need to fill out the CRM manually. It's also a CRM, back to my point before, that actually helps you with following up your customers by keeping track of everything, providing a great overview, and even automatically reminding you when a certain customer needs follow-up.
Awesome, man. So I think I speak for a lot of salespeople, perhaps not everyone here. When I certainly know for one, I hate entering data into a CRM. It's the bane of my life. Quite often I forget to do it, especially if I'm out and about and an inbound lead comes in on my phone. So I pick it up, I might give them a call or give them an email. And then I'll think a couple of days later, oh, damn, I forgot to enter that into my CRM. I probably shouldn't share with everyone what CRM I'm actually using because I'm almost a bit embarrassed about what I'm actually using to manage my leads. And that's what we'll perhaps talk about a bit later. But it's a great point because we're all, not every sales profession, but we're all guilty of kind of leaving it to the last minute and having, like you said, really complex CRMs that just take so long to fill out. Is quite often the bane of our lives and a chore when we want to be focusing on revenue-based tasks so we can hit our targets and get sales flowing. So interesting point, man. What was it like kind of going into an industry, because there's a lot of CRM providers, right? How did you guys manage to break out and stand out from the crowds and start generating revenue?
Yeah, so one of the very first things we thought was, we're not going to build a CRM. We're going to build something new. We're going to build a sales platform, and that sales platform is going to run next to sort of a Salesforce and connect with it. And it was going to solve the issue that I was talking about for bigger companies. But that's something that the bigger companies were not really ready for. They just wanted to fix Salesforce. They didn't want another system next to it. So we had to pivot to smaller companies pretty quickly. It took us about a year, I think, to build the first version. The issue with having to build a CRM is that there's a lot of expectations. It's not like you just build an MVP and everybody's like, oh yeah, that's good enough. No, they compare with all these other systems out there and they're like, yeah, but this doesn't do that and that. And then, yeah, the first customer that actually believed in what we built was after a year. They had such a big problem with they had Microsoft Dynamics, and their salespeople really weren't using it, which was hurting their sales. And they had read about us in an online magazine, a Dutch online magazine called marketingfacts.nl. And they had read that we offered something that would solve that issue. So they came to us after a lot of discussions, signed a yearly check, and that's when we got the first customer. And actually, I think the first few were either through things like PR, or they were through us reaching out to people within our network. We started off with doing customer interviews based on my network, and then going beyond that, asking these people, like, who else should we talk to? So we sort of build a small network that we could sell to, and that's where most of the leads in the beginning came from, apart from us getting in the press sometimes, which as a early startup was not too difficult, especially local press. Was okay. Getting in tech press is pretty hard. That's something we never really succeeded. We were once on the front page of TechCrunch, but that was not with an article. It was a video because we were at TechCrunch Disrupt.
Got it, man. Okay, so a combination of utilizing local press and also your existing network, which makes sense. I mean, we already know these people, so why don't we start networking with them and generating some business? No, that's cool. And I understand what you said when you said it took about a year or so. I mean, a CRM is a huge product to develop. And I'm sure, like building many things, there's often stones you leave unturned or features that you forget about. And it's not until people start testing these kind of products that you actually think, oh, we might have forgotten about this, or we need to add this, and all these kind of fun and games that come with it. What would you say was one or two of the biggest lessons learned in developing a brand new CRM and product and hiring staff and bringing it to market? Was there anything you could share that you learned, that if anyone's thinking of going into business themselves, that you could share with them a tip that might save them time or not make a mistake you did?
I think some of the early mistakes we made is we tried to make some things too optimal for the user, in the sense that we thought, if we do it like this and this and this, then it will be so good for the user. But what we forgot thinking about was whether the user would understand what we did for them. So we thought we're doing really well for them, but they were like, "What is this doing?
Yeah.
we don't get it." So that's something that in our very initial versions we had to get out again. So we went from something that was technologically and logically like perfect. We had to bring it back a bit to keep the balance with usability.
Got it.
That's something that you easily start doing if you don't have a lot of customers yet and users.
So focusing on what your customers actually want rather than what you think they want. Is that right?
Yeah, and not thinking too much from their usability perspective. Thinking about we're doing something awesome for them here, but not thinking it through in terms of like, are they going to get it?
Okay.
That's was for us initially quite a big danger. Then getting that first feedback is pretty hard as well. So in the beginning, when you have nobody using your product, you need to beg for feedback. Now we don't have to do that at all anymore. Sometimes it's like, how do we manage all these feedback? But in the beginning, you best stay very close to your customers. I see a lot of companies trying to scale right away, trying to immediately create a distance with your customers, which is a really bad idea because you crave that feedback. You need it. Otherwise, you cannot improve your product. You cannot improve the processes, the way you deal with customers, the sort of customer journey they go through. I believe you should keep customers for as long as possible, as close as possible, so you can really find out how you can optimize everything, and then slowly let things go like piece by piece. In the beginning, I would guide the whole process with customers end to end. So I would basically find the leads, sell Salesflare to them, sell the demo to them, have a demo with them. Then if they were convinced, booking a call or doing it right away to get them on the software, setting it up completely, which was hard in the beginning, together with them, guiding them around, then following up after that. The whole thing I did. And it's only step by step that we let all these things sort of go. Not everything, but for instance, we don't. People just find us on the site. We don't have to find them anymore. They get on the software very easily, a few clicks. We don't have to do that anymore. There's all setup guide in the software that they can use to set it up. We don't have to help that much anymore. All these kind of things.
Slowly automating processes, it sounds like.
Yeah, which doesn't mean that we don't like to stay very close to customers, because it adds a ton of value if you still do. It makes you so much more nimble and understanding of what they need, which can make a big difference when you're competing with these big players. That let's say between the founders or the C-level and the customers, there's this huge distance, and we don't have that, so we better use that.
Love that. It makes perfect sense. I mean, your customers are the one who are going to use a product, so it makes perfect sense that we should be talking to them all the time, getting their feedback, doing what they like, getting rid of what they don't like, and ultimately bringing more revenue and retaining our customers, because we all know for a fact that it's way more expensive to get new customers than it is to retain existing ones. So what you're saying is perfect, man. Okay, so moving on, let's get to the main topic of the show, Jeroen. Let's talk about how we can compete with giants as a small business. So I'm sure there's a lot of business owners tuning in that they're in their sector and they've got the main brands that are perhaps pumping thousands into paid ads, into SEO, into content, into maybe TV, media, all these marketing streams, and they're perhaps wondering, how can I compete with these? How can I steal some of their clients? How can I get ahead of them and start generating more revenue? And I believe you've got a 6-step process, right, on how we can do this?
7. Yeah, I can.
7 steps.
That
cool,
doesn't
man.
really matter. Yeah. No, it's definitely a pain. I feel we have huge competitors that are from like 100 times bigger to whatever 7,000 times bigger in terms of size, and that's not just the teams, that's also the resources. So like you said, there's they can just steal traffic everywhere, get visibility. They have this so much money that it's very hard for us to compete. So what we have to compete on is really listening better. It's learning quicker. It's moving faster. And well, there's a few things you can do to sort of make that happen. Like you said, there's well, I can discuss 7 topics. So the very first one that I very much believe in is focusing on a problem, not a solution. I'm mentioning this because I see a lot of companies starting around solutions, and these solutions are often not things that really stay around or that are not very fundamental. It's important to let's say build a product and build a company, not a feature or a small thing. It also makes that if you focus on a problem, that can evolve with the market, and you can grow as a product and as a company. While if you're focused on this one solution, that's very hard to do. So we focus, for instance, on the issue where CRMs are not being filled out, and in general more on how salespeople need to spend a lot of time on things that are not really human stuff, not like what salespeople are hired for. So there's a whole lot of work we can do there, and it's not just that very initial thing where we connect some data and organize it. We can go way beyond that and make sure that we sort of keep that competitive edge.
It's interesting you should say this as the first point. I put a post on LinkedIn earlier. I've had terrible earache recently, Jeroen. So last Saturday, I was up all evening, the whole night, with an ear infection. Didn't get a wink of sleep, and I was literally thinking in my head, to solve this problem, if a doctor could give me a pill, I would literally give him nearly all the money in my bank account to make it go away. It was that bad. It was like someone was jarring a knife into my ear. And I was just moaning and groaning. My girlfriend was next to me trying to get to sleep. She's like, Sam, shut up. I was like, I can't, it hurts too bad. Like taking all these pills and they weren't doing anything. And I just remember thinking, like, you see so many websites, messaging, ads, they're all geared towards how good companies are, how many awards they've won, how cool they are, all these features and benefits. And really, like you say, you've got to start with the problem. So what actually you fix, so in your case, your CRM fixes, saves salespeople time, saves them the arduous task of constantly entering data because it auto-populates it. So we need to think about that first and work from there. That makes perfect sense, man. I like it.
Yeah, and then to make that easier, it's good to pick a problem that you can identify with. So that also means picking a problem of people that you can identify with. So solving a problem for sort of your people. Choosing that immediately implies choosing a market, and choosing a market very much defines the people you'll hang out with. It very much defines the people you get in touch with. And if you really enjoy being in touch with these people, then that will make your customer proximity so much better. Everything I talked about earlier when it comes to being close to your customers, understanding them very well, listening better, moving faster. If we, for instance, because I often had people saying like, oh, why don't you build this for real estate? There's such a huge need there. I'm not really like a real estate guy. I don't particularly enjoy real estate and all that. So if we would have built a CRM for real estate, I'm pretty sure it would have been pretty shitty. We focus on agencies. I used to work in an agency. We focus on software companies and on startups. And we can identify very well with all of these target groups, which makes that we can make an actual difference there. I remember actually when I joined the Founder Institute, which is where I met my co-founder. The very first day, the founder of the Founder Institute at the RSC, he did a presentation, and there was this slide where he said like, You can build this very fancy used car sales platform that really revolutionizes that thing and looks super fancy and all. But in the end, you will place yourself in the used car sales market, which means that you will have to deal every day with used car salespeople, used car sales buyers. You'll be enveloped by all that, and you need to understand that very well when you start this sort of company. It will define whether you feel good and how well you will do and all these things to a very large extent.
Got it. So are we talking about actually being passionate about our ideal clients, our prospects, the people that we're going to be working with? So picking an industry or a sector. So in your case, you worked in agencies, so that's mainly who you target. Why I target this podcast, I want to learn from business owners, sales marketers that are smarter than me, that I respect. So that's why I started this. I'm passionate about growing business online. So yeah, that makes sense, because I guess there's no longevity really. If you're just looking at an industry you don't really care that much about, so you're going to put less time and effort into it and the results won't be there.
It's sort of like when you go for a job. As far as I'm concerned, when you pick a job, there's two things that are important. One, do you like the culture of the company where you're going to work? So that's the second thing I said, like choosing the people you wanna focus on. And then, do you like the job content? Do you like what you're going to do? Which is the problem you're focusing on. Is that something you enjoy? And if these two are a fit, then it's a good job. If these two are a fit, then it's a good thing to focus on with your company. But if they don't, then you better look for something else.
Got it, man. What's step 3?
Step 3 is, again, keeping your customers as close as possible. Like I said, if you start acting like a big company, which is something you easily do as a small company, you sort of have this complex, like we're so small, nobody's going to believe in us. And you start organizing things so that people think you're a very big company. Mm-hmm. No, the problem is that you also lose your competitive edge versus big companies like that, because you'll also start treating customers like numbers, while you can do the opposite. You can keep customers very, very close, treat them as friends instead of numbers. You can offer them what these big companies can't. You can offer them extreme personal care. And you can get to know their problems and desires very, very intimately. So, for instance, in our case, what I like to do is get on the support chat now and then. I'm not going to stay away from that. I even often in evenings, Taylor, who does support, she's not around, and I see someone having something urgent, I'll help them out. Cool. I'll be active in Facebook groups with our target audience. I'll connect with every person who comes on Salesflare. I'll connect on LinkedIn. And this is all to sort of keep that very close relationship, because when they do that at not just at Salesforce, but HubSpot or Pipedrive, they'll never get that experience that co-founder connects with them and wants to know how they feel about things, So.
A lot more personal by the sounds of it, which, like you say, these massive corporate companies, I guess they're just not able to do it on the level that smaller businesses are, especially if you're a startup. And then you can have that personal touch, just like you say, you can support them live chat. You can probably hop on a call or video call with them, so you can really give them the next level of support, so they feel like they're really looked after and there's some longevity. So that's awesome, man. That's a really nice point.
Yeah, and it's not just me, but let's say you start scaling a support team or a sales team. It's very, very hard. The larger that team becomes, to train people in such a way that they can give stellar customer support to stellar sales. That's something you still have very much under control when you're a small company, so you need to really capitalize on that.
Got it, man. Okay, cool. So what's number 4?
Number 4 is never skipping any steps along the way. We discussed this shortly already before, when we were talking about slowly automating the process. So first keeping customers very close, and then letting go, automating, delegating step by step. It's very important that you try things first, optimize them, try to nail them, and then sort of build from there. So that I like to say often, nail it before you scale it. And this applies when it comes to automating, but it also applies to delegating. So don't just automate things right away, and before you understand how you would do it manually. But also don't hire people before you've done the job yourself, because if you haven't done it yourself, it's very hard to manage people to do the job well, or to even recognize who would do a good job at it. We started Salesflare reading the book Getting Real by 37 Signals. And a big part of that book is also about that. It's really from starting small, starting with the essence, and then growing from there.
Fantastic, man. I love that piece. You said never really expect people that you hire to do something you wouldn't do. So it's kind of like hiring a sales guy, getting them to run all these demos and expect them to drive all this revenue, get all these sales in. And if you've never sold the product yourself, if you don't actually know the sales cycle, the questions that clients are going to ask, and how to kind of overcome objections within your product, and all this stuff, it's just not going to work, is it? If you can't help them with that, how are they going to know?
No, yeah, and that's something especially technical co-founders will easily do. They won't trust their own sales skills. They say, I've never sold before. But if you, as a you might be a technical co-founder, it doesn't matter. If you cannot sell your product, if you don't understand why people need it and convince them to use it, then you will not be able to hire someone that will do it for you. You have the sort of the passion, you have all the knowledge about what you're doing. So you should be able to do it. If you can't, then it's very hard to scale from there, I believe.
Got it. Try it, nail it, and build it, and never skip the previous steps. All right, that's it. We're just over halfway. We've got 3 more steps to go, my friend.
Yeah, the next one is building further on this. As soon as you've done that, let's say you always do things manually and you never scale the things, then that's not going to work either. Because imagine you're like a 7-person company like we are, and you're trying to compete with companies that are at least 700 people, or even 40 or 50,000 or whatever. That's not going to work. You need to be able to focus really your time as much as possible with your customers, and focus your time on building value. And you can only do that if you automate all the other things away.
Okay.
So don't keep yourself busy. Really automate things as much as possible. There's things you can use like Zapier. I'm personally a huge fan of building Zaps. I think we have about 100 Zaps running at Salesflare that automate just about everything we do. Then there's obviously Zapier is just connecting the different software products, but we also have a lot of different good software products that make our life so much easier. Salesflare is a good one as well, obviously, where you automated data input, you can send automated email sequences and all those kind of things. And
so give us a quick tangible example of that, Jeroen. So processes that might speed up things for startups, or any ones that have particularly helped you. I know you mentioned Zapier there. So are we talking about things like automatic emails? Are we talking about things like using templates for demos, or what kind of stuff are we talking about that automate that's actually going to make our life easier that we don't need to spend tons of time on?
All of these things. So for instance, when we reach out to integration partners or potential partners, like agencies that partner up with us, that's all with automated emails. So what we do is we do some really good research on who we're going to reach out to. And you have all kinds of tools to do that in a good way. But then from there, we just load it into Salesflare, and it starts emailing by itself until people reply. That's one example. Another example, for instance, for us to get reviews, we have this automation set up that when people give us an NPS score of 9 or 10, that they automatically get asked to review, and then they go there. Our whole onboarding process with people getting on the software, the whole follow-up flow is actually fully automated. All the little reach outs we do are automated while being personalized. So we go as far as possible with sending the right things at the right times. The first reach out is always automated, so we don't have to go pull lists and then contact people one by one. But then as soon as people reply and we have a conversation, then that's manual again, because that's where we really add value is in having the conversation itself.
Understood.
So it's really focusing on what doesn't need us per se, what a robot could take over, and then organize it like that, and focus our time where we add the most value.
Excellent tip. Excellent tip. Okay, and number 6, please, sir.
6 is a bit further on that. It's very important to focus on what the core is, the core value that you bring. It's a common thing in business thinking, but what is the core value you bring? And really focus on that and try to outsource the rest.
Okay.
You can do this on many levels. When you start off, for instance, if you build a software product, for instance, then you need to think very well, like what is technically the core of what we're building, and which things don't we need to spend time on. So, for instance, back in the day, you had to make every button in your software, for instance, yourself. Nowadays, you just pick frameworks for that. Initially, when we started building Salesflare, our email integration, for instance, we didn't build it ourselves. We used an external system for that. And it was only after a while that we internalized that, because if we would have done it from scratch in the beginning ourselves, it would have taken so much time, and even a year, it wouldn't have worked to get that first customer. So first, we outsourced it. And then at some point when we decided this is really core technology, we started pulling it in. And this is something you can do on many levels. There's always thinking like, is this part of our core value, or is there someone that can do this cheaper than we would do it internally, and actually in a better way, perhaps?
Jeroen, are there any main focus points that you'd say are key for, let's say, startup businesses, as that's mainly what we're talking about, or new businesses that have only been going a few years, that they should focus on? For example, should we focus on our main product? Should we focus on retaining our customers and revenue? Should those be the 3 things, or I might have missed a few? And then everything else, should we look to outsource or delegate elsewhere?
Yeah,
that's any main points you'd say?
You need to decide where you're building the value, and then. But if you want to generalize it, I would say building your product and service is core, and selling it is core. All the other things, not so much. But then within that, there's still things that you might say like, okay, but this is not something we absolutely need to do, and you can give that away as well.
Got it, man. Okay, and the final tip, please, sir.
And the final one is a very important one as well. It's a bit like in the have you read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? I think it is, by Stephen Covey.
I haven't. I need to get onto that one.
No. It's actually sort of the 7th point there as well. Okay. It's taking plenty of time to sharpen the saw. So like you can be sawing every day, and at some point the saw doesn't saw that well anymore. Taking the time to sharpen it. What we do, for instance, on a bi-weekly basis, we have a team meeting in which we see what went wrong in the last 2 weeks, what went well, and then we try to fix what went wrong and learn about what went well. This helps us to always improve. We also have monthly one-on-ones with people to go through these kind of things, but more on a personal basis, not on a team basis. We go through all the feedback we received from customers also on a bi-weekly basis and prioritize that. There's all kinds of processes we have running to always improve. if you don't do that, it's very easy to get stuck somewhere with your business in a rut and to sort of lose that momentum, or things just start going wrong somewhere, you know.
Nice one, man. So a combination of things, it sounds like: working with your team to understand any feedback or any questions or any problems that they've got, working with your customers at the same time, and
Also,
sharpening.
yeah, for sure.
In terms of kind of personal development, are there any? Is that one book that you'd recommend, Jeroen? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that have helped you a lot. Are there any specific books or podcasts that have helped you with your business growth?
That book I read quite a long time ago was very interesting. For business growth, I tend to listen to podcasts like Mixergy, in case you know it. The SaaS podcast I often listen to as well. And I started listening to indie hackers now. These are a bit more specific to SaaS companies, most of these podcasts. So maybe not directly applicable, but
got it, man. Well, appreciate you sharing the 7 tips with us. And just to recap, the 7-step process to beat your giant competitors. So we've got number 1, focus on the problem, not the solution. Secondly, we've got focusing on solving a problem for your people. So actually focusing on sectors or clients that you're passionate about, rather than just going for any Tom, Dick, or Harry. Keep customers as close as possible. So we talked about looking after them as friends rather than numbers. And like you said, if you're able to, because you're most likely going to be a small team, you can add that personal touch, really, like hopping on live chat, hopping on calls, and really making sure your customers are happy. 4 is, it sounds like, refining everything, so never skipping a step and making sure you do everything nicely. Number 5, automate any robotic tasks, so anything that doesn't actually need your personal attention that you can set up a robot or set up a system or a platform or a piece of software to do. Make sure you do that. 6, focus on your core values and then outsource the rest. So anything that you don't need to be doing that's not going to drive revenue or retain customers, outsource that. And then 7, focus on sharpening the source. So refining everything and making sure you're keeping learning, taking customer feedback, and working with your team to grow the company. Awesome, man. We appreciate you coming on, Jeroen. We do like to ask everyone that comes on, is there one thing that businesses should be doing with digital marketing that will help them from today?
I will choose writing proper content when doing content marketing. I think what a lot of companies are trying nowadays is they're jumping on content marketing. They want to do it in a cost-effective way, let's say. So they'll try to get a cheap copywriter somewhere. They choose a topic. They'll say to the copywriter, start writing, and that copywriter might not necessarily know the topic they're writing about so well, and they'll just read on the internet what other copywriters have written, and then take that, mash it up, and create more crap content for the internet. I would like that to stop. It's not effective content. Nobody will want to read it. Maybe Google. Even Google will not rank it anymore, because Google will see that people are not properly reading it, and Google will say like, okay, this doesn't belong in the top 10 or the top 3 or whatever. So I would really tell people to stop that and actually write about what they know. And if you want to have content about stuff you don't really know, which is maybe weird because your blog should be more about like what you're thinking about, then get someone else to write it who knows about that topic, but stop giving it to just any copywriter.
Okay, so focus on topics that you actually know a lot about, and then anything you don't, kind of outsource it to a professional that does. Is that what you're saying? Makes sense, man. Appreciate it, Jeroen. Well, everyone, you've been tuning into Sam's Business Growth Show, where we sit down with business leaders, experts, and entrepreneurs from around the globe. We find out their story, how digital marketing has helped along the way, and their exclusive tips and insights to help you skyrocket your sales and skyrocket your business. Jeroen, we like to ask everyone that comes on, if you could thank just one person, either dead or alive, having a positive influence on yourself and your career, who would that be and why?
I think that would be my wife, who is always supporting me on this journey. Without her, I wouldn't have started this, I think.
Awesome, man. That's a safe bet to pick as well. Appreciate it. So please tell us a bit more about how people can learn from you, how they can connect with you, Jeroen, and the best way to get in touch, and a little bit more about your business.
To learn about Salesflare, you can go to salesflare.com. It's sales and then FLARE.com. If you wanna try the software, there's a button at the top right that says free CRM trial or something, or try it free, or I don't know exactly. And you can get anywhere between 7 and 30 days of a trial. Depends on how well you use it. You get extra days. To connect with me, you can get on LinkedIn. My name is a bit hard to write, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere when you're listening to this podcast or watching this on LinkedIn. There's only one person with my name, so I'm pretty easy to find. As soon as you can type it, please add a message, because otherwise I won't know where you come from, and I'll think you're probably just another person who wants to sell me something. Did you have another question, or was that it?
That was it, dude. Appreciate you coming on. And everyone, if you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to subscribe on your channel of choice, be it Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, wherever the heck you get your podcasts. We've got tons of episodes of business leaders, experts, sales and marketing leaders from around the globe. So hit subscribe on your channel of choice. Otherwise, Jeroen, really appreciate you coming on, dude.
You're welcome. It was nice.
Are you tired of constantly hunting for new customers? You could be missing out on regular inbound opportunities, all because your website isn't on the first page of Google. Perhaps you're already spending lots of money on advertising, but your website is failing to convert all of your hard-earned visitors into a consistent flow of new customers. If you'd like to learn more about our unusual approach that brings idle clients straight to you, connect with Sam Dunning on LinkedIn or book a free 20-minute consultation via webchoiceuk.com. That's webchoiceuk.com. Subscribe today for more digital marketing, sales, and business growth tips from the experts.